Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar. My name is Matt.
I'm Wes.
And today we are going to talk about why nobody visits your church website. I know it hurts. It hurts. We have talked to churches all over the country, all over the world about this.
Yes.
And we have prepared a webinar that I'm very excited to share with you today. Before we really get started, I want to just plug a couple things real quick. First, I want to let you know that we have a Facebook group online for our users in ChurchTrac. I highly recommend you join our users group. It's a community of ministers from all around the world that love doing ministry so much that they want to help you do ministry as well. You can join the group, ask questions about your ChurchTrac account, and just enjoy the community there.
Yeah.
And Wes, tell us about the YouTube channel.
Yes. So if you're like me and you don't like to look at user guides and read, that's boring.
That's me.
I much rather watch videos when I'm trying to learn new things. In our YouTube channel, we post all of our previous webinars. We have a lot of step-by-step videos. I think there's like over 100-something videos on there, Matt.
Yes, a little over 100 now.
Yeah, so go ahead, join that, hit subscribe so that way you can be notified next time we go live or when we launch new videos.
Like this one. This one will be on that YouTube channel later.
Yes.
Now, if you've been with us for a while, you're familiar with how we do our webinars. We usually cover a particular topic or use a particular feature of the ChurchTrac account or a group of features, and we dive deep into that to help you use it. But today is different.
Yes.
Today, we are going to talk about you and your church website. We've got the Q&A open, we've got the chat open. I'll be monitoring the chat as we go. I see a lot of people chiming in from all over the country. Thank you very much for joining us today. In a little while, I'm actually going to close the chat, and we're going to have a dedicated Q&A time at the end. I just want to make you aware so that you can think through questions as we go, and you can ask them later, and we'll answer them near the end.
Yeah.
But today we're going to cover a handful of things. First of all, Wes is going to start us off with some questions to think through. These questions will be just to get the gears turning in your head so that you can think through some things critically about your website. And then we're going to go over the 7 reasons nobody visits your church website.
Ooh, that sounds very ominous.
And then after that, we'll go over 7 ways to increase traffic to your website. And then follow it up by showing you a feature we offer at ChurchTrac called Church Connect that I think you all are going to be very interested in. And that's when, after that, we'll have that Q&A time.
Perfect.
All right, so Wes, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the questions?
All right, so some questions to ask. So first of all, many of you already answered the question that we asked, and we asked this in a lot of webinars actually, is describe your church website in 5 words or less. Sometimes we say 3 words or less.
Right.
And we get some crazy responses, and we get some pretty normal responses. Oftentimes, I'll hear churches say that they don't have a website at all. Sometimes churches will say their website's great. Sometimes they'll say they have a website, but it's outdated. What was the one that we were laughing at the other day?
Oh man, one of the respondents said, unchanging, like Jesus.
I don't know if they were trying to make a joke, but it was a good one.
Unintentionally funny is the best.
Yes. So we're going to kind of work through some of these things. And so the first thing when we're talking about websites is what purpose does your website serve? And then kind of going in tandem with that, what purpose would you like it to serve? Because oftentimes those can be 2 completely different things, Matt.
That's true.
Has your website been worthwhile? Is it worth the time and money? These are things I want you to think about as we kind of go through some of this. And do people actually visit your church website? So
yeah, that's the key question for this webinar because frankly, there's nothing worse than spending a lot of time and money on a church website, except spending a lot of time and money on a church website that nobody visits.
Yeah, that's bad.
So we're going to go ahead and dive right into the 7 reasons we found nobody visits a church website. Now, these 7 reasons, these aren't comprehensive. We have come up with this list because we talk to churches all day, every day. Wes and I both do.
Yes.
And we see dozens of church websites, sometimes daily.
Every day, we probably go through at least 20 websites here at ChurchTrac. I have personally looked at thousands of church websites in the years that I've been here, and you have as well. And our team here, we're always looking at church websites as we're helping churches and migrate all the church management stuff. And so we're able to take a lot that we have learned from our churches and put that into this.
Yeah, this is going to be a combination of things that we've seen ourselves and also a little bit of research we've done to prepare for this webinar. These reasons are not going to be in any particular order. However, reason number one probably is the number one reason people don't visit your church website, and that reason is nobody knows it exists. I know that seems a little obvious, but I just want to bring this up because I was actually talking, this was a few weeks ago, I was talking to a minister, and this is what inspired this webinar, in fact. I was talking to this minister, and we were looking at his website, and he expressed frustration that nobody used it. And that surprised me, too, because it looked beautiful. It was amazing. He had done a lot of work on creating this website and making it exactly what it needed to be for his church, and no one visited.
So he spent a lot of time and a lot of money in
Yes,
making this website.
Yes, and he was pulling his hair out looking at the metrics and the analytics, seeing no one visit. And so I asked him, okay, do people know that it exists? And he was like, yeah, of course they know it exists. I told them all about it when I made it. And so then I asked, okay, when did you make it? And he thought and said, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago? And I said, okay, well, have you talked about it since then? And he said, I guess not. And that was the reason no one visited, because no one even thought about it because no one talked about it.
Yeah.
That's the general rule of thumb with church websites. If you're not talking about it, your people aren't thinking about it. I actually kind of think about a church website almost like a marriage.
It is.
Yeah,
it
so
really is.
you can't just say I do and then think that that's going to cover you for the next 50 years. You have to tell your spouse, I love you, every now and then, just to make sure that they know.
Hopefully at least every day.
Yeah, at least every day, minimum. So that's how it works with a church website. You have to talk about it or else no one knows it exists.
The next reason that nobody knows about your church website is because it's slow and it's unresponsive.
Yep.
I have seen a lot of websites in my day that I've gone to them, and after a few seconds, I'm just like, this won't load, and I move on. Studies show that if a website's not loading within about 8 seconds, that person has decided, you know what, next thing.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so short attention spans mean you have to have a quick and responsive website. The rule of thumb for me is attention spans are short, your load time has to be shorter.
That's true.
All right, so the third reason people don't visit your church website is that it doesn't offer value. I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by value a little bit later, but for the most part, most church websites might have their service time and location. They may have some info about a few programs and then, a few pictures from a few years ago, and that's about it. And so there's nothing that's drawing people's attention to your website or making the time they spend on your website worthwhile.
And you perfectly segued into the next one, and I don't even know if you meant to, but church websites having old pictures and things like that comes to outdated content.
Yes.
That's another reason that people aren't visiting our church websites, is because the content on our website is old. Maybe you have an event from like a year ago. I've seen a spaghetti dinner from 3 years ago on a church website, and I wondered to myself, how many people are actually going to this church website if they actually have that still listed?
Yeah, so you need to make sure that you're removing outdated content. The next reason is that you're not using your social media. You don't have a social media presence, and you're not leveraging that presence to point people towards your website. To be honest, your Facebook and Twitter and all of these other social media platforms, your members have accounts and they check those accounts every day. And most of the people that check those accounts daily do so multiple times.
The gram, for sure.
Yes. So you need to be using those social media platforms to point people toward your website.
Yeah. And speaking of Instagram, people being on their phones all the time, your website's not mobile friendly. And if it's not mobile friendly, people are going to go to your website, they're going to look at it and be like, I can't even get around and I can't even click this link because it doesn't work on my phone. Mm-hmm. And they go bye-bye and they never come back.
Yep, the vast majority of everybody surfing on the web and checking your website are doing so from a very tiny screen.
Yeah.
So the next reason, and this is the seventh reason that we've identified that nobody visits your church website, is that you haven't set up online giving. You don't offer it yet.
Yeah.
There's just for a couple quick statistics to share with you, just to show you the importance of online giving.
He really nerds out on these
statistics.
Yeah,
I love doing the research and I love looking at the stats. So first of all, the National Association of Evangelicals, the NAE, found that just over 50% of donors gave to their church online in 2020. That was the first year that stat crossed that 50% threshold mark. Yeah. So online giving has become the number one way people give to their church now. Another organization called the Nonprofit Tech for Good found that 45% of churchgoers and Christian donors give via not just an online giving platform, but an automated monthly giving platform, which means that not only do your members like to give online, but they like to just set it and forget it. What was that? What was the name of that oven that was their slogan?
When I was a kid, I'd watch these. It was like Showtime oven or something, and it was just a rotisserie oven. But they always say, "Set it and forget it."
Yeah,
that's probably trademark, so we can't say that.
Okay, well, we'll deal with getting in trouble for that later. But that's how people like to approach online giving and donating to their church. They like to do it online. They like to set it and be able to walk away and not have to think about it again. But more and more, the thing that I want to give to you and help you understand is that more and more people are giving online every day.
Yeah.
So those were the 7 reasons that no one visits your church website. Now we're going to go over the 7 ways that you can improve your website, or at least approach your website, that'll help improve traffic.
Yeah, and if you feel like we were like getting really just like, oh man, you're just like ragging on my website. No, we want to make our websites awesome, and we want to also make it to where people actually use them. And this can be a tool that our ministries can use to push the gospel in our local community.
Yeah, these 7 ways, I don't want to make any big promises. There's no promise I can offer you if you use these 7 different ideas. But we personally have seen churches implement these ideas, and most of them have seen a bump in traffic. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. The first one is mention your website often. That addresses that first reason that nobody visits your website.
Wait, so how often, Matt?
All right, you need to talk about your website until you're sick of talking about the website. Then you need to talk about the website some more.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to do it just by word of mouth, though. That is the best way to spread the word about your church website. But we also recommend using every other avenue available to you. For instance, you could add it to your bulletins or flyers that you hand people as they walk in the church. Yep. We even recommend you go so far as to add the QR code for your website onto that flyer as well, because there's no easier way to get the people to the website than just them scanning it.
Get my camera, scan the website QR, and I'm done.
That's the easiest way to get people to your website, other than snatching the phone out of their hand and going to the website for them.
We can't do that.
No, we can't do that. I don't recommend it. We recommend you post about it on social media. If you have mass email or texting, add a link to the website in those emails and those texts. That'll get a lot of people to check out the website. You could also mention it in your sermons. You could add it to the announcements. If you have like a screen at your church and you have the announcements on a slideshow before and after, just add it to one of those slides. Yeah. And also, get some of your leaders to talk about it as well, like your Sunday school leaders, small group leaders, any of your other teams at your church to talk about it, to direct the members toward the website.
Another way that you can increase traffic to your website is by checking all the links and the buttons on your website. And this is something, it's really easy to do. You just go on your website and you start clicking around on everything and make sure that it works. Believe it or not, when people go to websites and they find that things just don't work, like maybe they go to click to give and it just takes them to blank screen, or maybe they click to see upcoming events and it has like nothing show up, or it tries to take you to something and there's an error, that turns people off really quick, and then they just figure, well, I guess the website's never really up to date and this is always broken, so I'm just not going to come to it ever again. Yeah,
and frankly, this reflects very poorly on your organization. This is just the fact of the matter right now. If a potential visitor is checking the website before deciding to come to the church, broken links and buttons can reflect poorly and even appear as incompetence.
Yeah, so don't look bad. Fix your buttons and links.
The next thing that we recommend you do is that make sure your website is valuable. Add value to the website. What I mean by that is add content to the website that makes spending time on the website worthwhile. One idea would be to add a blog to your website. I know blogs can feel a little 2012.
Well, the connotation with blogs is like I'm having to type up some 1,000-word essay every time.
Yeah, we know that as a minister, you have a lot on your plate, and you don't have a whole lot of bandwidth to add another task like writing a blog. Even if you're not the pastor, you're the admin, you probably have a lot of things you're juggling to help the organization run smoothly. I don't want to necessarily add anything to your plate, but a blog would draw more people to check out that content. One recommendation, this is just a suggestion, would be that the pastor simply add the stuff that didn't make it into the sermon.
Yeah.
So all your sermon notes or the extra content that didn't make it into the sermon, just drop that right into the blog, and it can act as a companion to the sermon that the pastor preached last Sunday. Another idea would be to connect your extra content. So if you have a sermon archive, whether it be audio or visual, just embed that archive to your site. That allows potential visitors to check out what they can expect before they visit. It also allows longtime members to catch up on a sermon that they missed.
Yeah.
Another example would be considering offering something tangible. What I mean by that is I've seen different churches do this differently, but I've seen churches direct people toward their website to fill out a form for like guests to fill out a form. And they then gave them a $10 gift card or maybe a T-shirt and a coffee mug as a reward for filling it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually seen a lot of churches do the gift card for like coffee shops. And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And Wes, you told me the other day that your church does like a Q&A.
Yeah. So my church, they did this. They started doing this thing a while back where it's like a Q&A where after the church service, pastor will sit down and one of our people will basically just kind of facilitate a time of question and answers from the pastor. And so people will submit questions via the form on the church website or they'll text it. And the pastor just answers those questions. And what's kind of cool is it's not really like some grandiose production. It's pretty low production, but the content is super high value, and people really like that.
Cool. All right. And they put it on the website, and that directs people to the website to watch and participate.
Yeah.
And then also, last idea, if you or anyone at your church has ever been published, if you've written a book, or if you've had maybe a journal article published, or you've been you've written something for an online publisher. Blog, yeah. Add that link to it. That way, your website becomes essentially a hub where your members go to find everything else that your church is involved in.
Another thing that we can do to ensure that people come to our websites more often is we can remove outdated content. And as I like to say, keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh.
So we want to keep our websites fresh and give people a reason to come to our site, kind of like what we were talking about with giving that value.
Yes.
But going in tandem with values, we got to keep our website fresh. We have to have upcoming events. We need to maybe have our calendar put on the website and embed that in there so that way people can see what's coming up, what's happening at this church. And you definitely just want to make sure that you don't have anything outdated on there. This is a good opportunity to look at maybe some events, double check times to make sure that, are these discipleship groups still happening on these days, these times?
Yes.
I have personally, this is true story. I was leading a discipleship group a few years back at my old church, and it was a Thursday night, and I had someone show up at my house at 7 p.m., and I answered the door, and it was a couple, and I was just like, hello, how can I help you? And they were just like, oh, we're here for the Bible study. And I was just thinking, that was yesterday.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, it was a little awkward at first, but it was actually a good opportunity for us they actually came in, we made them dinner, and got to know them, and they became a part of our church. But avoid awkward situations like that if you can. Don't put old dates and old times on your website for when things are happening and stuff. Just double check it.
Yeah, because thankfully for Wes, it worked out. But in your situation, it can lead to
always
a lot of
work
awkward, awkward frustration, and we want to help you avoid that. Now, the next thing we recommend you do, beyond removing outdated content, is also share your website on social media. I would even recommend you go so far as to not necessarily, I recommend you don't share literally every single new bit of information about your church on social media.
Yeah, people will unfollow you pretty fast.
Yeah, not only that, but I recommend you add that information to your church website and then post links to your website on social media. That way people have to go to your website to find that information. And while they're there, they likely will click around and see what else you have to offer and what else they'll find about your church.
Yeah. And then another way you can really help encourage people to come to your website more is to make it mobile friendly. And we kind of already talked about this a little bit earlier, but just to reinforce that, we are at a time and point where I think it was it 54%, the stat you were looking at the other day?
Yes, it was 54%.
And that's going up.
Yeah, 54% of people surfing the web and checking your website are doing so from a smartphone.
Yeah, and so that's the amount of people that are going to your church from a mobile device. And so we have crossed that threshold where now more people are going to our church websites from a phone than they are from any other sort of device. And so we want to have a mobile-first mindset in everything that we do. And so if you're using a WordPress or some sort of online platform, or you're building your website, you want to make sure that whatever that template is that you're using, that's a mobile-first template, because in the next couple of years, I'm very certain that we're going to see that number hit like 60% or more here in North America. So mobile first.
Yep. And last but not least, the seventh thing we recommend is that you set up online giving.
Yep.
There's a lot of different online giving providers you can use. We're not necessarily going to promote one over another, but we recommend you do some research on these different providers and figure out which is best for your church and your context. But this is such an important feature that here in ChurchTrac, we even integrated online giving just to make it as seamless and easy as possible for both the members and for the church.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing we want to bring up, this is sort of an extra thing we're tacking on. This is an honorable mention. I know enough of you are probably savvy enough to think about this and ask this question: what about SEO?
Yep.
So we want to talk about SEO for a second. SEO, if you're not aware, stands for Search Engine Optimization, and that's a fancy term to refer to the process of adding keywords and search terms people commonly put into a search engine like Google to look up websites. It improves the likelihood that your website will appear near the top of that list of suggestions when somebody Googles something. SEO is all fine and good, and it's okay to be thinking about SEO when you create your website, but our research suggests that you don't sweat it. It's okay to add SEO to your site, but frankly, most people aren't looking up a new church with a Google search. They're not going into Google typing in churches near me. If I'm imagining, someone who's looking for a new church to attend, they're not going into Google. They're most likely going to an online map like Google Maps and then searching for a church within a geographical area. So Wes, I think you have Google Maps up.
Yeah, I had Google Maps up earlier. I mean, this is exactly what people do when they're moving somewhere new or they're trying to find a new church home. They're hopping on Google Maps, either on their computer, typically it's their smartphone. They're searching an area. So let's say I'm moving to Austin, Texas. So I'm moving to Austin, Texas, and I'm moving over into this area of Austin, Texas, Old West Austin, whatever that is.
Shout out to anybody watching from Old West Austin right now.
So I will search church on Google and see what churches are around here. Now you're probably wondering, well, why are a lot of people searching for churches like that? Because at the end of the day, most people want to go to a church that's within their general area. They don't want to commute 45 minutes, 50 minutes to church. Nope. It's one thing to go to work, but on the weekends when people are going to church, especially families, I mean, you know this with 2 little kids. You cannot be in a car for 45 minutes one way going to church.
Nope.
And so studies show, according to Pew Research, that 68% of people, their commute to and from church, it's about 15 minutes. So they're getting on Google Maps, they're looking up churches around their area, and I'm literally just looking at random churches here. Here's one. So I pulled up this church. And you know what they're doing next? They're going to that church's website.
Yep.
Right to the website from Google Maps. Now, that's a big driver of people going to your website. At the end of the day, it's still word of mouth from friends and family of how people find your church website.
Right.
And the other one is social media. But Google Maps, huge.
So we recommend, instead of spending all that time trying to build SEO into your website, instead go to google.com/business and create a Google business account. I know your church isn't a business, but they allow any organization to add their profile there. That's how you put your church on the map, literally on Google Maps. That's how you get your church to appear as one of those little red pins when people search.
And many of you have already done this, but if you haven't done it, or you've already done it, but you just want a quick refresher, we've got a great article, and it's so cleverly named, How to Put Your Church on Google Maps. But as you go through this, we talk about why you should be on Google Maps. We list the benefits. Spoiler alert, it's free. So that's a good benefit right there. So check that out. And one thing I always like to mention about Google Maps, this is a situation where you don't want to set it and forget it.
Correct.
You want to actually log into Google Maps occasionally, or not Google Maps, but your Google business profile. And just double check, make sure you don't have any crazy reviews on there. Keep your photos updated, times you're open, stuff like that.
So if you're watching this webinar after the fact, I'll put a link to this blog post in the description.
Yeah.
Now, we've covered the 7 reasons why nobody visits your church website and also gone over 7 ideas for how to improve the chances that people will go and visit your website and spend time and learn more about your church. Now we want to talk about Church Connect, a feature that we offer at ChurchTrac that will help you and your ministry.
All right. Well, I will pull it up. So I've got my smartphone here with Church Connect. And what Church Connect is, it's a website, it's a member portal, and it's an app for your people, and it's built right into ChurchTrac. And so I've got it downloaded on my phone right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And as I open up Church Connect, I see my church's logo. I've got some cool cards here. It's built up out of cards is what we call them, Connect cards. And I could click here to maybe get connected with my church. Maybe I want to submit a prayer request. Well, I can easily do that. I can submit a prayer request. Or maybe I want to, let's say I want to volunteer because I want to be on the worship team. Because after all, play the guitar, want to be on the worship team. So I can go down here and I can click serve and go ahead, maybe fill out a form to get plugged in to my church to be able to serve. There's so many things you can do on Church Connect. The big takeaway that I really want to stress here is many of the problems that churches face when they're trying to get more and more people to go to their website and actually use that as a hub, Church Connect solves those problems. For one, it is an app so people can have it on their phone so they actually know it exists. The speed and responsiveness is really awesome in it, especially if they download it. It's crazy fast, which is something that sometimes websites, not so much. Another great benefit is this is a hub where you can link all of your content. So I've got here people can register for a community cookout coming up soon. But then I also have, if I scroll down a little bit, I've got our Facebook group right here so people can do that. I've got a listen link that goes straight to my podcast. And so it makes it really easy to link things from all over the place to one place, which in today's day and age, between live streams and putting files, places, and all that stuff, we need an easy way to link all these things to one place. And Church Connect can do that. And Church Connect also has giving built in as well that you can enable. And as you can see, it's mobile first, which is a big deal. So that's Church Connect. We always like to show that off just so you can see a little bit of how it works. And this is all built into ChurchTrac, by the way. So if you have not yet already started your trial with ChurchTrac, go ahead and start your trial so you can check out Church Connect and see how that can help out your church.
All right, Wes, thank you very much for showing us Church Connect. So right now, we have gone over all the content that we had prepared for this webinar. We've asked those questions ahead of time, like how to describe your church website and what purpose does your church website serve and what would you like it to serve. We've also gone over the 7 things that prevent people from visiting your website and also the 7 ways that we can improve the chances people visit.
Yeah.
And also Church Connect. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to enable the chat again.
And it's open.
Oh, it's already been open.
I'm
All right.
ahead of you.
All right, thanks. So chat is open again. If you have any questions or anything that you've thought of while we have gone through this webinar, go ahead and post those questions here. And while you're thinking about those questions, I want to let you all know we're actually going to email you all a little bit after this webinar is over. So check your inbox later today. We're going to send you a PDF guide that we've created as a companion piece to this webinar that goes into greater depth for everything that we've talked about today. Also, just real quick, I want to plug again our Facebook group. Please go ahead and join the Facebook group if you're using ChurchTrac, and also our YouTube channel. Go ahead and go to youtube.com, search for ChurchTrac software, and then subscribe to the channel. And you'll see this webinar pop up pretty soon, and you'll be up to date with all the other videos we add there as well.
All right, we've got a lot of questions coming on in, so we can just start attacking them.
All right, Doug Rosier says, can you post instructions on how your serve card? So how to add a serve card, I'm assuming is what he's talking about?
Yeah. I tell you what, reach out to our support team, just churchtrac.com/support. That way you can have them give you some instructions. The other thing too, that's just a form card that we created that with. And if you go to your home screen, so I'm on ChurchTrac here, so I'll just open up the software real fast so everybody can see this. And then we have this green help button. It's to the top right of the software. So if you click that green help button, and I'll zoom in just in case you're watching on a smaller device. If you click that green help button, you can actually bring up our online user guide or just ask us a question. And many of the things in Church Connect that we're kind of going over really briefly there, you can find that right here on our Church Connect articles. So we've got a lot of articles that show you how to use Church Connect. So I'd encourage you to check that out, but also check out our YouTube channel because we have entire webinars dedicated to some of that as well.
All right, so somebody named Administrator asked, how do you make your website mobile friendly? Making your website mobile friendly isn't necessarily something you do. When you're selecting a website builder platform and you're choosing a template, you just have to test that template out and make sure they have made that template mobile friendly.
Yeah.
Eileen says, I need to find out more on Church Connect. Wasn't familiar with that. All right, Eileen, yes. Again, we just showed you the online user guide. That's the best place to go. YouTube channel, there's lots of videos on Church Connect there that you can watch to get you up to speed. Yvonne Reed said, I love the YouTube channel. All right, great. Well, Yvonne, we love you, and we're glad that you like that YouTube channel. Jim G says, does Church Connect interface with WordPress?
So you could link to a WordPress site with Church Connect. And this is something else, too, that I really like to stress with Church Connect. If you have a phenomenal church website that you love, don't think of Church Connect as like an all or nothing approach where you can only either use Church Connect or your existing church website. No, Church Connect is great if you already have a good website because it can pair with it and be a member portal. I didn't even get a chance to show you that, but as a member portal, your people can log in, they can look at their giving history, they can go and update any information on their profile, see when they're scheduled. There's so much going on in there. And so you can actually link to your Church Connect with a button on your website. Just make sure the button's not broken. Make sure you check that. But link to your Church Connect from your main website and then just kind of market that to your people as a member portal / app for your people.
All right, Jim G asks, does Church Connect, I'm sorry, that's the one we just read. Joshua Mason asks, what online giving apps does ChurchTrac work with other than Stripe? Stripe is the one that we directly interface with. We don't interface with any of the other providers.
Well, I think so. The question that is asking is kind of more so, can I use other providers with Church Connect? And the answer is yes to that. It's not going to directly integrate with ChurchTrac in terms of automatically recording all your giving records, but you can use what we call a link card in Church Connect. So you can take a look at that. On our user guide, just look up the link card. And a link card basically enables you to link to anything. So when people click that card, it'll take them to whatever it is. We should do a choreographed dance here. We're both... and so I would just encourage you to link to your online giving with the link cards. That way, when people want to give online, they can just click that card in your Church Connect, and it brings them right to it.
Okay, so Readers United Methodist Church asks, what is the recommended number of tabs or pages recommended for a website? There's not really a hard number or a line that I would draw between not enough and too many. It's hard to say because you can put way too many and overwhelm the users and be really confusing for how to navigate around the website.
Yeah.
There is a law of diminishing returns.
There is. Here's the thing. When you're designing a website, you want that website to be pretty, obviously, and you want it to be functional. And you can have a lot of places people can go on a website, but you need to make it very obvious of how to get there. And so if you have a lot of things that are just kind of hidden all over the place and links that go to different places and stuff, that can be too much. But if you lay out your website in a manner in which it is very easy for people to navigate, and so maybe you have a menu where people click that menu and it's very apparent of what that menu entails and everything, you have multiple menus, you can do that. When it comes to building out Church Connect, we usually recommend no more than about 12 to 15 cards, just because people, as they scroll through in a mobile device, because keep in mind, mobile device is king in all of this. You don't want people feeling like they're scrolling on Instagram all day. So always kind of keep in mind that what are the most important things that you really want to stress to your people. And oftentimes we find with churches, the most important things are, for when it comes to new people, you want to make it easy for them to know who, what, where, when, why. Like where you're located, when you meet, all those things. But also make it really easy for your people to submit prayer requests or other types of forms and to give online, because that's such a big one. Online giving is probably one of the top 3 drivers of that why people even go to your website to begin with, that go to your church.
All right, so this is a great group. We got lots of people posting. Neil says, thank you for the Google business tip. You're welcome, Neil. I'm glad that we were able to point you in the right direction. George Pester said, how would a visitor search and connect to Church Connect? Well, Wes, why don't you pull up that ChurchTrac account?
Sure.
So if you're using ChurchTrac and you're on the account, you'd go to your settings feature. And at the top of the screen, there's a tab that says Church Connect. If you click that, if you click to go to the Church Connect settings, this is where we give you the URL for your Church Connect page and also a QR code. We mentioned adding a QR code to the flyers and bulletins. We believe in that so much, and we understand the convenience of that so well that we actually gave you this QR code that you can download and add to all that material. But this link and the QR code is how you direct your members to the Church Connect page.
Yeah.
All right. Eileen says, I heard blogs are a thing of the past and we removed it from our website. Should we re-add it? It was difficult for me as an admin to get anyone to submit info, and being the admin of the church website is my part-time job I don't get paid for. Okay.
And then she also has a follow-up. Is there free material to put on church website blog? This is a really good question. And you kind of mentioned it a little earlier that, blogs, we all thought they were a thing of the past and stuff. And in a way they are.
Yeah.
But they've actually just kind of morphed. And so think of your blog as not something you have to magically think up all this information that you need to put for your people because the chances are they're not going to read it. No, think of your blog as an opportunity where you can give people just that little extra added value, whether it's the sermon notes perhaps, or the things that didn't make it to the sermon, or maybe like a Bible verse or something of that nature. What are some other things?
Another idea I've seen some churches employ is that they instead of having like the pastor or another staff member be in charge of the blog, because that just adds a lot more work that they already have a limited amount of room on their schedule. Yeah. They actually found someone in their church who is gifted in writing and has a passion for sharing God's truth, and they just let them use the church website as the platform for their own blog, and that's another route you can take. Again, this isn't something that you have to have some hard schedule for posting, and like Wes was saying, you don't have to constantly churn out content. This isn't something that has to be very restrictive like that. You can just add content as you're able, and therefore give more value to your website, and new visitors can check it out and see where your heart is and where your church's direction is and what your focus is ministerially. Yeah.
And just to encourage everyone, if you ever need any additional help with all of this, we are just a quick support ticket away. Just go to churchtrac.com/support, create a support ticket, reach out to our team. We love helping ministry. It's why we do what we do.
It's what gets us up in the morning, man.
Yeah, that and a lot of coffee.
Well, that's what gets us going, but gets us out of bed in the morning is helping churches do ministry and helping lighten the load that they have to share and that they have to carry. So let's go back into the Q&A. Administrator, Lanai. All right, hi, Lanai. I can't even figure out how to get my name to appear on this. That's okay. How often should the blog be changed on the website, weekly, monthly? There's no set time. Again, this is just a way to add content and add value. It's not something that I want you to have any stress over when it comes to adding or writing.
Reach out to us on that, because it always comes back down to your congregation. Every single church is unique and different, and what works for one church may not work at all for another. In fact, it may be detrimental to another. And so it's always good to also talk to your people and ask them, just, hey, what kind of stuff would you like to see on the website to help you throughout the week? Is there like a devotional you'd like to see? Is there like maybe a Bible verse from the pastor that the pastor posts? Or maybe it's not even necessarily as much having a blog, but just making it really easy for people to submit prayer requests online. Maybe that's your draw to get people to go to the website. I know that sounds super simple, but it always comes back down to the simple things is usually what drives people to a website.
Yes.
Don't overthink all this stuff.
All right. Pamela Townsend asks, How do you add board members to ChurchTrac with limited access specifically for website and media usage? Yes. All right. So Wes, let's show.
That's reach out to our support team on
okay.
that because
Sure,
that's
that's
definitely
better.
getting more into the settings side of ChurchTrac.
But yes, you can use ChurchTrac and determine what people have access to and what they don't. But reach out to the support team for more in-depth assistance on that.
A lot of good questions
Yeah,
here,
a lot
Matt.
of great questions. We've got a great group. You all have been very interactive. We really appreciate the attention you've given us and the time that you've spent with us, especially all these questions. It looks like the questions have come to an end, though. We've asked the very last one here in the queue. So we'll go ahead and say that this is coming to a close. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about your church website, and I hope that it's given you some ideas, especially those questions.
Yeah.
Look back over those questions, or when we post this webinar again in a couple days, go back over that question section.
That PDF
Yeah.
that we've got here, so everyone will be automatically emailed this. And if you're watching this
Yes.
at a later time, just check the video description down below. You'll be able to see that PDF. And this is basically the culmination of everything we talked about today and a whole lot more. And we really ask you some tough questions in here too as you go along. And this is good because at the end of the day, we can't just sit around and just settle for mediocrity in our church websites. We always want to strive to make it awesome and to engage with our people in ways that we've never been able to do. And this will definitely help get you on the right track for that.
And speaking of engaging with our people, Wes, what's the next webinar we're going to host?
Oh, so we are doing, so if you're watching this at a later time, you're probably going to miss it perhaps, but we are doing a accounting Q&A webinar. The last one we did, it was insane. I mean, I think Lori, our support manager, and myself, we must have answered 50-something questions. I can't even remember.
Yeah, it was insane.
So we'll be sending out an email about that a little later too, so you can sign up. But we expect to have a huge turnout. Again, nothing is off the table. When it comes to accounting, we are going to be tackling every single question that we can. Bring us your hardest questions. I know Lori's going to probably get really mad at me after this and be like,
head
are
on the
you
desk
serious?
right now.
But no, bring us your tough questions. That's the whole point of this Q&A because we really want to help your church maximize this software. At the end of the day, we really want to simplify your ministry and save you a lot of money. And part of saving you money is enabling you to not have to spend a bunch of time researching stuff and doing all these things if we can do that for you. So we will be having that soon.
All right, so we hope that this webinar gives you some great material and some great ideas for how to take your church website to the next level and use it to advance the gospel. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Have a great day.
See ya.